playing field.
Sir, your previous tariffs during your first administration cost Americans some $80 billion. And now you have major companies from Walmart, Black & Decker, AutoZone saying that any tariffs are going to force them to drive up prices for their consumers. How do you make sure that these CEOs, that these companies don't, in fact, pass on the cost of tariffs to their consumers?
They cost Americans nothing. They made a great economy for us. They also solve another problem. If we were going to have problems having to do with wars and having to do with other things, tariffs, I have stopped wars with tariffs by saying, you guys want to fight, it's great, but both of you are going to pay tariffs to the United States at 100%. And they have many purposes, tariffs, if properly used. I don't say you use them like a madman. I say properly used. But it didn't cost this country anything. It made this country money. And we never really got the chance to go all out because we had to fight COVID in the last part. And we did it very successfully. And when I handed it over to Biden, the stock market was higher than what it was just previous to COVID coming in. It was actually higher. Tariffs are properly used, are a very powerful tool, not only economically, but also for getting other things outside of economics.
Well,
I think Trump is a businessman. He wrote a book which is called The Art of the Deal. So he tries to making deals with other leaders from all over the world, with other countries. And for that, he's using tariffs as a leverage. He doesn't want to pass the cost to the consumer. He doesn't want to necessarily earn tons of money. He just wants to have a level playing field when negotiating with other world leaders. And that's what I believe he's going to use this, the tariffs, as a tool to get what he wants from other countries.
Again, prices did go up on some goods in your first administration, washing machines, tires. Will you punish CEOs?
Let me just explain to you. No. You mentioned washing machines. So you look at Whirlpool in Ohio. I got a call from Jim Jordan, one of the greats, congressman from Ohio. And he said, they're going out of business because South Korea and China are dumping washing machines into our country. And I put a 50% tariff on the washing machines coming in from China and South Korea. And Whirlpool and the companies that made washing machines, which are based in Ohio, largely based in Ohio, went through the roof. We saved thousands of jobs, tens of thousands of jobs. They were all going out of business because they were dumping washing machines. And when I put the tariffs on, they became successful businesses. No, it didn't. Not only didn't it cost people, it made our country stronger and more powerful, and it kept jobs.
But how do you make sure that consumers don't wind up paying more? Will you punish CEOs who try to pass the cost of tariffs on to their customers?
Well, the market's going to take care of it. I mean, actually, the market takes care of it. And if it doesn't, we adjust it somewhat. But in the case of Whirlpool, or let's say companies that made washing machines, they were all being put out of business by the dumping from, in particular, South Korea and China.
Yeah, that's a big problem when you're making everything in China, in Southeast Asia, then they export their product back to the United States and back to Europe, but at a much, much lower cost. That's exactly what's happening with electric cars. Electric cars from China are now invading the US, they are invading Europe, and the cars that are produced in the United States and in Europe are not competitive anymore. And eventually, the auto manufacturers that are in the US and in Europe are gonna go out of business if we let China invade the market with their electric cars. So we definitely have to do something about that, and tariffs are a great way to solve this issue. I agree.
And when I put the tariffs on, very substantial tariffs, although peanuts compared to what people do to us, what countries do to us, it became a very, very powerful, successful company. Now, let's say I didn't do the tariffs. It would have gone out of business. You would have lost tens of thousands of jobs, and you don't include that in your equation. No, they make a lot of money. I'll go a step further. Tariffs are going to make our country rich. Tariffs are going to help us pay off $35 trillion in debt. Tariffs are going to make our country safe because China, as an example, doesn't want to play games with us if we're going to do tariffs on them. They don't want to play games. And we have a lot of games being played on us right now.
Well, I think, and that takes me to my next question.
Yeah.
Are you actually going to impose these tariffs, or are they a negotiating tactic?
Well, I'll give you an example. With Canada, and in particular Mexico, we have millions of people pouring into our country. You agree with that. I spoke with I spoke with Justin Trudeau. In fact, he flew to Mar-a-Lago within about 15 seconds after the call ended. Yeah. He was at Mar-a-Lago. We were having dinner talking about it. I said, you have to close up your borders because they're coming in the northern border, too, a lot. Not like the southern border, but they're coming in the Canadian border a lot. And drugs are pouring in. Almost as importantly, drugs are pouring in, maybe more importantly, drugs are pouring in at levels never seen before, 10 times what we had. They're just pouring in. We can't have open borders.
Yeah, I agree. A country without borders is not a country anymore. And open borders are very, very dangerous, and they are a national security threat. And they should definitely do something about that and not let that many illegal immigrants just come in, transporting illegal goods as well, such as drugs and more.
I said to the president of Mexico and to Justin Trudeau, if it doesn't stop, I'm going to put tariffs on your country at about 25%. That's a very substantial tariff. And in the case of, in both cases, but in the case where it was really visible, within 10 minutes after that phone call, we noticed that the people coming across the border, the southern border, having to do with Mexico, they were at a trickle, just a trickle. It was, in fact, I call the border. See, unlike my opponent, I do call the border a lot. And I said, how's the border looking today? They said, there's nobody here. They couldn't believe it. The military stopped these vast groups of people. You know, we call them caravans, but they had caravans of people, and they largely stopped them. Now, they're going to have to continue that, but if they don't continue, and the other thing I told them is no more drugs, and I told that to China, too. I had to deal with President Xi. Had the election been different, I'm going to be very nice because we don't have to get into an argument over 2020, but had the election been different, the result been different, we would have had China giving their maximum penalty, which is the penalty of death, to people that sent fentanyl into this country. But Biden didn't, unfortunately, finish that discussion up. I had an agreement with President Xi, who I got along with very well. We've had communication as recently as this.
Yeah, I think President Trump is going to do a great job with the border. I think he's going to do much, much better than Biden and Kamala Harris, that's for sure. And that's one of the primary reasons why so many people voted for him. That's why he got reelected, to get the economy back in shape, to get the money back into the hand of the American people, to fix the border and to fix the wars all over the world, to stop the wars and bring the world back to peace.
This week, and I had communication with him where they were going to give the death penalty to anybody sending drugs into the United States.
This week you had that conversation.
Not that conversation, but I had other conversations. Okay. But in the past, I've had that conversation.
Let me ask you about another aspect of the
I think it was very interesting to hear what he was going to do on his presidency, during presidency, starting on day 1, end of January. I think it was a very interesting interview, very interesting speech to get a little bit more insight about what his plans are. I hope you enjoyed this video with me today. I hope you like this video, and thank you for watching and stay with me. Click right there to watch the next video. And of course, I will see you there in the next video. Bye bye for now.